The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Your host, James McDonald.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea. I'd like to start by welcoming our participants to our webinar. And we can see here that most of you are already logged on to the webinar. What we're going to be talking about today is using statistics to kill your competition. And as you read in the preview email that was sent out, there are so many ways that we can use statistics effectively to help you in your business, both in, selecting your target market, in recruiting, in hiring, to attract buyers and sellers, getting the right price. You're going to find on today's webinar just how important it is to have all of these statistics at your fingertips, but more importantly, how to use them effectively, how to articulate these statistics in a powerful way to whoever it is that you might be communicating them to. Now, Craig, you've worked very hard on today's webinar because over the years you found this to be a vital element of your business and really understanding your numbers and how to use them effectively. Thanks for doing the call, first of all, and take it away.
All right. Thanks a lot, James. So yesterday, James, I spent a couple hours on updating this presentation. Wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out when it comes to how I've used statistics successfully over the last 20 years of my real estate career. So I thought the best way to really demonstrate exactly what I did, how I used stats, and how everyone listening to me right now can do the same thing, is to actually show you what I did. So let's get started. We'll go to the first slide here. By the way, when you go to the coaching site, when you go to our call on statistics, you're going to find some good reading here. This item that's called Idea of the Month. I'd recommend that you all read this. This was an article that I published a couple of years ago, but some very good examples on how I use statistics when I was working with both sellers and buyers. The company that I used here in Toronto is a company called IMS. It's IMS, it's Info Marketing Solutions, and their website, for those of you that might be interested, is realestatestatistics.com. And I'll repeat this information towards the end of the webinar. But these guys are third-party auditors, and they'll go into your MLS. For most of you anyway, they have access to most MLSs from all over Canada and the United States. And for a fee, they'll pull some very valuable information. You can do this manually, of course. You can do it yourself, but that's going to take time. So depending on how you value your time, you may want to contact this company. They don't pay me anything. There's no referral to me or anything, so I'm not trying to sell you folks on using them. Just want to let you know this is the company that I use. They are in Toronto, but they can work anywhere in North America. And the value of having them provide statistics, of course, is they're third party, rather than you providing statistics about yourself that you pulled yourself. You'll have that third party stamp of approval. The statistics will be actually audited. So let's start with how I use statistics to select my target market. And that's the first thing that we ask all of you to do, or we urge all of you to do, is to spend some time doing some research on MLS to determine where it is that you should hang your hat. What price range you should be working in, what geographic market, what type of properties you should be focusing on, whether you should be mostly a buyer business or a seller business. Most of you, of course, are going to do both. So here's a good example of how I use statistics that are provided by IMS to look at all the different marketplaces. Now, this isn't my market, but just to give you an example, I'm not even sure where this is, but you can see all the different cities or neighborhoods, and you can see the number of units sold, you can see the value, you can see the average days on the market, and you can see the average sales price. So if you have this information, you could make good use of it because you could decide, okay, what is the best target market for me to choose? You may look at Arlington here and you may say, okay, there's 257 units. There's lots lots of activity, lots of turnover. The average days in the market are 26 days in the market. The average sales price is 322. That might be a pretty good area. But then you go down to Brookline, and you've got almost twice as many transactions, 483 transactions. Look at the value, $237 million of real estate. Average days in the market, 33.6, and the average sales price is 492,000. So you may decide that Brookline is a much better target market than Arlington because there's twice as many sales. The average sales price is 492 versus 322 days on the market, and days on the market not that much different. There's going to be 33 versus 26. Now, if you compare that to other areas like Dover, there's only 69 transactions. Okay, or Lincoln, there's only 53 transactions. Okay, so does everyone understand that this would be a good exercise for all of you to go through? I mean, this part of it you could just do manually yourself on MLS. You don't need to hire IMS to do this. Most of you know how to go into your MLS and print off all of the sales. You could do it for a month. You could do it for the last 6 months. You could do it for the last year. But this is going to allow you to make an intelligent decision as to where you're going to aim your marketing efforts. Okay, and one of the mistakes that I made when I first got into the business is I just randomly picked my target market. Okay, it was the neighborhood where I got my first listing. Many of you do that. It might be the neighborhood you get your first listing. It might be the neighborhood close to the office, or commonly the neighborhood that you live in. Okay, that's not the best way to do it. We want to use science. We want to use logic when it comes to selecting our target market. So everyone should write this down. This is an exercise, some homework. Go to MLS today and ensure that you're working a good target market. Some of you might be working an area that's much too big. Let's talk about that. What if the target area is way too big? For example, I'm in Toronto. So Toronto, population 3 million people, way too big in relation to the resources that I have. So I work the town of Newmarket, a smaller area, Newmarket, Aurora, population 50, 60, 70,000 dollars. That's a manageable number. I can get noticed in that marketplace. Okay, and there's enough turnover. And days on the market are important. What if you're picking an area where the days on the market it takes 3 times as long to sell properties in that particular area versus you doing no more work by targeting a different geographical target market where homes sell in half the time or in 2/3 less time. Okay, so everyone get this? You've got to do this research, and you've got to make sure that you need to, you might have to make a change. You might have to change from whatever you're doing now to a completely new strategy, and that's okay. It's better late than never. So target marketing, very important. The next thing I want to talk about is getting the price right. Okay, getting the price right. You can use statistics to help you get the price right. So let's look at some of these graphs. Now, one of the problems that we have when we go in to meet with a seller is we all have a tendency to bring the exact same information from MLS. So James, if the seller was interviewing you and interviewing me, there's a pretty good chance that we'd bring pretty much the same comparables, right? We all go to the same well for information. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't bring that you don't bring your comparables. Of course you're going to do that. But to help set you apart and help make you look like an expert, I would bring in statistics like the ones I'm going to share with you here. I would bring in graphs and charts. Why? Because I want to be positioned as the expert. Let's say that because you're involved with our program, you go out there and you make all this money, and now you want to hire a financial advisor to take care of your money. And you don't have a financial advisor, so you go out there and you interview a couple different financial advisors. And the first person you meet with seems to be a little bit shaky. They don't really seem to know their stuff. Doesn't give you a lot of confidence, right? But the second financial planner you meet with really seems informative. Your perception is that this person really has their finger on the pulse of the market. Which financial planner would you pick? Would you choose to manage your money. Okay, obviously the person that you felt was the expert. So this is what you and I want to do when we meet with sellers and when we meet with buyers, is we want to present them information that other realtors aren't presenting them. Okay, to first of all get the right price, of course, to convince them, and that's really what we're going to do. Is we're going to have the information that we provide here do all the heavy lifting for us. So we don't have to be, twisting anyone's arm. Now, that's not to say that every once in a while, we deal with somebody that's unrealistic, right? They're even though you present them the right information, it falls on deaf ears. But let's assume that most people are reasonable. If we present them good information, they're going to make the right decisions when it comes to pricing their property. So I think I skipped a slide here, but let's look at this one: units sold in new market. So you can see that the number of sales are starting to drop off in the last half of the year. What would that tell an intelligent seller, right? That things are slowing down here. So I would definitely be showing this graph here. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it looks like things are slowing down. We had 163 sales at the peak, and last month we had 89 sales. Let's have a look at the next stat. Okay, hold on. I got to go back one here. Average price. Look what's happened to average price. Okay, average price is kind of up and down. Okay, here's the list to sales ratio. Now, we talked about a couple of slides ago the fact that the sales were dropping down, but the percentage of asking price that sellers are getting is dropping as well. So what would that tell a seller? That the market is definitely slowing down. The number of sales are dropping over the last few months, but so is the list to sales ratio. Okay, so we're dropping from a peak of 98.29% of the seller's asking price, and we're dropping way down. Okay, this is sales by volume. Okay, you can see what's happened with sales by volume. Again, it's dropping. So all of these are indicators that the market's starting to soften. Okay, days on the market at the same time are going up. Okay, what would that tell the seller? Days in the market are going up. It tells the seller that the market's slowing down. So no one graph here is going to paint a complete picture of the market. But when we take in all this information together, when we provide this to the seller starts to understand, okay, the market is definitely slowing down. There's ample proof of that. We've looked at many different statistics. Now, this is a graph that I use on seasonality. You can see that this charts back a bunch of different years, but always more activity in the spring, and then it drops down in the summer, and then we've got a bit of a blip here in the fall. Question that sellers will commonly ask me is, when's the best time to sell? So I would show them this graph. And if they're listing their home in the summer, they're going to have to be perhaps a bit more aggressive with price because sales have dropped off. This is also valuable information for sellers. I'm in District N7. That's new market. Sellers were quite often shocked by the fact that there were 2,327 homes listed, but only 1,144 of them ever sold. Okay, so that's for the entire year in District N7. So less than half the homes that were listed sold, and sellers don't understand that. They, many of them think that, well, eventually all homes sell, and it's not true. So again, we have this important conversation about you have to be aggressive with the price if you want to be in the 50% that actually sell. Here's a chart that basically shows the same thing. The blue bars are the number of homes listed, and the red is the number of sales. And now I'm starting to get into my track record that you've got 3 times the chance of selling your home with me. And we're going to get into some individual statistics here in a minute. But any of you can do this. This is just good market information that all of you should be tapping into. That's really the advantage we have in this industry. It's probably the most regulated industry in the world. And we can use all of these statistics about what's happening in the market to set us apart from other agents when we meet with buyers and sellers and really help you and I look like an expert. So let's have a look at your individual track record or my individual track record. So when I'm meeting with the seller, I might use this in my marketing to get sellers to contact me. I'm definitely going to use this information in my listing presentation. So I determined that when I did the research that my listings were selling for 97.47% of the seller's asking price, but the board average was 95.46%. Okay, so my homes on average were selling for almost $4,000 more, or $4,000 closer to the asking price than my competitors. Okay, that's good information that you want to share with the seller. And here's another image we have of this, and it shows the board average at 96%, my average at 97%. Here's the difference that I get. The average price of a home was $238,000, so that's an extra $2,216.08 that Craig Proctor is going to get for your home. Okay, now this is what we call success ratio. 86, almost 87% of the homes that I listed sold and closed. When you compare it to the board average, at that particular point when I was selling 87% of my listings, only 58% of the homes were selling. So that's good information to include in your listing presentation when you're meeting with the seller. Again, this is really easy for all of you to access. And let's talk about this for a second. What if your success ratio isn't any better than the board average? Maybe your company stats are better. You could use your brokerage stats. You know, I worked for Remax Omega, so Remax Omega stats might be better. So there's no shame in using your brokerage stats. If we go backwards a slide, we go back to list to sales ratio. If you find that your average is no better, maybe your company, your brokerage statistics are better. Again, you can use those.
Craig, not only that, but you can also select the time frame. So, for example, if you go back a year, you may find that your results are far more favorable than if you only go back, 6 months or 90 days. Or you may find the opposite. You go back a shorter period of time, and your statistics will look more favorable.
Yeah, very good point. And I want to add something else that you could also do. James is saying you could go in there and you could dictate the time period, right? So you could say, what's my list to sales ratio look like over the last 3 months, or the last 6 months, or the last year? Pick the time period that best suits you. But you could also search by price range. So maybe in homes over $500,000,
right,
my days on the market are far better than the average realtor, okay? Or my success ratio is far better than the average realtor. So you want to play around, and that's exactly what we would do. If I was, let's say, James, I was meeting with you and you had $1 million home, I would do a quick search on my sales, $1 million plus, and I would try to play with the parameters. That's the word, play with the parameters, whether it be time or price range, to make me look good. That's really what we want to try to do here with statistics. And of course, not every statistic, not every search that we do is going to make us look good, but there's no law that says we have to use statistics that don't make us look good. You're going to pick and choose. Now, fortunately for me, I had an advantage in all these areas, but I promise you, if, for example, my days in the market were inferior, I wouldn't be showing the seller this graph. Okay, but here, my days on the market were 33. The board average was 68 days on the market. I'm going to use that. But you could search a certain price range. Maybe your days in the market between $300,000 and $500,000 are far superior. So control the parameters, play around with them, whether it be time period or price range or geographical neighborhood. That's another thing we can do, right? Maybe in the east part of town, my days in the market aren't as good as on the west part of the town. Okay, everybody getting this? Okay, now company market share. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I worked at Remax, so I'm going to use this, right? Remax had a 31% market share here in Newmarket. Royal LePage was second, Sutton Group, Century 21, Coldwell Banker. Now, if I worked for one of these other companies, of course I'm not going to use this. But if your particular company, your franchise, has a leading market share, you definitely want to use that in your presentation. And the next town south of me is Aurora. So you can see Remax slightly edges out Royal LePage here in Aurora, so we're going to use that. And in Toronto, okay, GTA stands for the Greater Toronto Area. Okay, GTA, Greater Toronto Area. Remax has got a commanding market share, 32%. Okay, so at IMS, again, I feel like I'm doing a commercial for them, but I'm really not, because I'm just saying, hey, this is the company that I used. You can do this yourself, but I liked having IMS do this because they put their stamp of approval on it. I mean, they make these up. They're professionally audited statistics. And, it's like if the Democrats say something great about the Democrats, it probably isn't going to be believed. And the Republicans say something about the Republicans, it may not be believed. That's the power of having a third-party auditing company put their stamp, their auditing stamp on this, because it's going to be more believed if this information is coming from a third-party auditor. Okay, now, some of you, not many of you will be able to do this, but this was my track record, number of homes sold in the town of Newmarket. I sold 118 homes. The next agent sold 48. So I personally sold over twice as many homes as the next agent. So obviously that's a good thing to include in my listing presentation.
You know what, Craig? So much of that, though, is how you articulate that. In other words, just blindly going and saying, look, I sell more homes than the next agent, and assuming that the prospect is going to put two and two together and somehow come up with the idea that, well, you must be a superior agent, isn't a given. I think that such a big part of that is being able to articulate, why that would be important to them. Why is it important to them that they should choose the agent that sells more houses than all of the other? What benefit is there to them?
Yeah, you make a very, very good point. I remember earlier in my career advertising the number of homes I sold, thinking exactly that if I promote the fact that I sell a lot of houses, obviously the consumer, the prospects are going to connect the dots, right? If Craig sells a lot of houses,
he must be great.
Yeah, they're going to link that benefit to them. It means more experience, a better result for you, a higher sales price,
or does it mean
shorter
too busy
in the market? But sometimes what they hear is, well, he's too busy.
Right.
Right. Or, maybe he doesn't need my business. So you've got to explain what that superior track record means to the individual, because the individual home seller doesn't care that you sell dozens or hundreds of homes. What they care about is, what does that mean to me? What does that do for me as an individual seller? So I would frame it this way. I would say, if you were in Aurora, James, I would say I've sold 71 homes, which is more than any of the other agents in the area. And first of all, it proves to you that whatever I'm doing is working better. Can't argue that, right? Whatever I'm doing is working better. I'm selling more homes than any other agents. And it means that I've got more experience selling homes. So you might want to frame it, I'm the most experienced agent in the area. And because I have more for sale signs out there, I get more inquiries off of my for sale signs. More people call me off of the ads in the paper. More buyers are going to contact me. And one of the questions that I would ask the seller, if they were interviewing other agents, I would say, well, James, who do you think the buyers here in Aurora would be more likely to call, myself or one of the other agents in the area? And quite often they'd say, well, obviously they'd be more likely to call you, to which I would say, well, then why would you want to list with them? But the idea here is, if you sell more property, perhaps you've got better contacts, you've got perhaps more experience, perhaps you've got better means to advertise or market the property to sell it for more money. So I'm not stopping at the number of homes I sell. I am, as we just discussed, talking about the individual statistics for that home seller. Okay, the fact that my listings sell for 2% more than the board average. My listings sell in less days on the market. 87% of my listings go under contract as opposed to 50-odd%. So you've got to, wherever possible, do as much as you can to tell a complete story. But the point that James is making is, don't ever assume that they look at these statistics and join the dots. You got to do a really good job of articulating to them what that particular statistic means to them.
Craig, another good example, you were talking about list to sales price ratio, and even the difference between saying, on average, my homes sell for, 1.87% more than the real estate board average. If you can take that and say, here's what this means. On your home, around $7,000 to $8,000 more in your pocket on average for a home like yours. That brings the point home and leaves no room for wrong assumptions.
Absolutely. If I say to the average seller, I'm going to get you 1% more for your home, the seller might think, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, 1%.
Right.
But if they've got a $500,000 home, and you can say, on average, I'm going to be able to get you $5,000 more for your home, what sounds more impressive, right? What is better understood by the seller? So on the screen here now, you can see that IMS will do this for you. They'll set this up and they'll give you, it'll be certified. They'll compare you to other agents. They'll compare your days on the market. They'll compare your success ratio. They'll do all of this for you if you wish, or you can just do it yourself. This is a billboard that I show at the Super Conference. One of our coaching members in Gunther, Texas. Okay, Gunter's. I don't know where Gunter is. Gunter, Texas. You know where that is, James?
I'm afraid I don't know exactly where Gunther, Texas
I think it's
is, but I know it's certainly in Texas.
Yes, it's a small town, and Jim here had an 82.6% market share. Okay, he sold 82% of all the properties in his town. So obviously that's something that he wanted to promote on this big billboard coming into town. Rightly so. Now, IMS will also provide these certificates. This is something out of my listing presentation. And this would, whatever your status is, it could be number one for transactions. It could be number one agent for the least days on the market. It could be success ratio, could be list to sale, but they'll make this official looking certificate. And like I said, everything's stamped here, looks nice and official. So when you're in competition against other agents, this is a great leave behind. Just photocopy it, the color copier, leave it as part of your leave behinds. If you don't actually get the listing, it's a great thing to leave behind, or even send in a pre-listing package before you meet with the seller. Most of you, with a little bit of work, can find that you're number one for something. Okay, and that's your homework, is to find out what areas that you shine in, so we can really, take advantage of that and promote that, whether it's on the phone or online on your website or in your presentations. We've talked a lot so far in the webinar about statistics you can use when you're dealing with sellers, but what about buyers? Well, here's a great stat that I use with buyers, is the fact that my buyers on average are paying less than the board average. See, we want to do the flip opposite when we're representing a buyer. When I'm representing a seller, I talk about the fact, on average, I can get you 2% more than the board average. But with a buyer, my strength is in negotiating the lowest price when I'm working with buyers. So how many of you, if you do the research, will find that the price that your buyers pay, your list to sales ratio, is less than the board average? Okay, so when I'm working with a buyer, on average, they're paying 94.8% of the asking price, but the real estate board average is 96.5%. So depending on the price range of whatever the buyer's looking, and that might mean a $4, $5, $6, $7,000 or more savings in their pocket. Okay, so that's important and should be included into your buyer presentation. Okay, now some of you are really doing a great job here with your marketing, and you're starting to grow your business, and you're at the point where perhaps you want to hire a licensed assistant. Maybe you want to hire an agent to help you, a buyer's agent or an outside sales agent to help you with both buyers and sellers, and you're wondering, well, who's the best person to recruit? Well, some great information I got from IMS every single year was a list of all the agents in my area. And this is, you can get it alphabetical, but this search is done in order of number of units sold. So I don't know what I'm at the top there, 81 or 91, whatever it is. And it's not likely that I'm going to recruit the top agents here. Would everyone agree with that? I'm not going to get the people at the top of the list interested in coming to work on my team as a buyer agent. Nor did I want the agents at the bottom of the list, because they're pretty much telling me they're not doing too well at all. So the people that I would target would be the people in the middle of the list. Okay, and I had a script for my unlicensed assistant, Stephanie, and she would call these agents to see if they might be interested in meeting with me to work as part of my team. I would never say work for me. I would always say work with me, because they did work with me, and we were on a 50-50 split. So there's two ways to recruit agents. There's a passive approach where you run some of the ads that I've given you that you have access to now because you're coaching members. So you can go onto the coaching site and you can run any of the ads, recruitment ads, to get licensed agents to contact you. But not every licensed agent in your area is going to respond to that. So the other way to recruit agents is a more proactive approach. Okay, instead of a passive approach where you're waiting for them to respond to your advertising, promoting this position, you're actually calling them. Well, how do you know who to call? I mean, there's thousands of agents on my real estate board. So I was able to narrow the search down by using these statistics. Okay, eliminating the agents at the top of the list, eliminating the agents at the bottom of the list, and then having my assistant call using this script, and you'll find that script on the coaching site as well, the recruitment script. This was very successful, because what you'll find is some of the agents that you'd really love to come and work with you will never respond to the advertising. Unfortunately, the number one reason for that is ego. They would make more money working with you, but their ego won't let them call you. But if you call them, or you have your assistant call them, they may be open. That may open the door to a meeting, and then good things can happen. Some of the top outside sales agents that worked on my team, we were able to get using this method. Okay, these people never would have responded to any of the advertising. Now, mind you, I did get some good agents from the advertising, but you probably want to do both. You don't want to limit your search for good people. All right, let's give you that contact information once again. The IMS contact information, their website is www.realestatestatistics.com. Again, this is not a big commercial for them. I don't get paid a penny whether you use them or you don't use them, but they've been a really helpful resource for me in my business. And for those of you that are particularly busy, you may find it's way less expensive to have them do the work and help you do these searches for you on your MLS to help you find areas that you really shine, really stand out in. And also, as I mentioned, the fact that everything that you get from IMS has that seal. Okay, they're a third-party auditing company, and you're going to have that auditing stamp on everything. So it gives you a lot more credibility than just pulling information on your own. Now, I want to take some questions here now. So I'd like to go over to our operator, Andrea, and we're going to take as many questions as we can about anything we've talked about here today, or perhaps you've got some ideas on how you've used statistics in the past that we didn't cover. So let's go over to Andrea, and we'll see who's first.
Yes, sir. Our first guest is Nazzy Ranker. Please go ahead.
Hi. What I was looking, the last one, it says AV.A-/percentage. And what was that one on the first page of the presentation?
Okay, you want to go back to the very first slide?
The first one.
Okay, Adrian, can you do that for me, please?
Yep.
I'm going to have Adrian take us back to the first slide. I apologize. Some of them got skipped over for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I hit the mouse by mistake, but I'll go back and we'll have a look at that stat.
Which one do we want? The very first
I think it was
slide?
the first
chart.
The first chart, yes.
Okay. There should be that one there. What's the first chart? Or actually, no, hold, sorry. Is it that?
Just go through them quickly and we'll see if we can find it.
All right, so here's
from the start.
Yeah, there's the beginning. There's the idea of the month.
Yeah, everyone should read that idea of the month. There's also some really good information on the coaching site under attachments.
Right, that one. Yeah, no, before that. That one.
Okay, this one?
Yes, and then the last one, it says AV.A.
Okay, that's the list to sales ratio.
Oh.
Okay, so the city, the unit, the value, of course, is the amount of real estate sold, average days in the market, average sales price, and the list to sales ratio.
Okay, thank you.
You can see that one area, Lexington, look at this, there was 249 homes sold, and they sell on average for 101.33% of the asking price. So that's a hot area.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Let's see who's next.
Our next guest is Anna Benavides. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I do have a question. I started the business by going to the, sort of a geographic area. I speak Spanish, so I target the Hispanic market. And that has been very broad, too large. I've actually never utilized the statistics in the MLS for my area. Besides the AMS that you're promoting here, is there any other source that you can reach out so that they can teach you how to do the statistics by yourself?
Okay, IMS, and I want to be clear, I'm not trying to sell anybody on this, but they do have a program that agents and brokers can purchase that'll allow you to go in and change your own criteria. For example, you could use this program and interfaces with your MLS, and they can give you more information on this. But you could pick different criteria that you want to search all the homes over $500,000 all the areas over $500,000 where the homes sell in less than 60 days, for example. So they will allow you to go in and interface with your MLS and do very specific searches. For example, you could search a competitor. Okay, so your question was you're targeting, you're not sure how to use your own MLS or what other services out there are available for you?
Yes. Actually, I just logged into the MLS. I had the MLS open and also the webinar. And I'm just going to go in there and play around with it, try to get a better feeling of it. My problem is I've never used the statistics before. You know, I knew I wanted to target the Hispanic market because the ability to speak the language. And I've been very successful at it. But I want to expand the business into other areas now. And then I'm just trying to figure it out. Because using the statistics and the graphics sounds like a great tool, and I wanted to see how I can actually.
Well, you can do it yourself, and there's nothing wrong with having more than one target market. Mm-hmm. So you could have a Hispanic target market, and you could have a non-Hispanic target market.
Correct.
Right. You could work first-time buyers and you could work luxury homes, but you really should, as a first step, get familiar with exactly what you can do yourself on your own MLS.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm going to start doing. Just getting an idea of what I can do and learn about it. So then when I ask my questions, so I go to the IMS, then I know exactly what I'm looking for. Otherwise, then I'm just fishing for, not even know what I'm fishing for.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong also with calling IMS and having them do a demonstration, and because you only know what you know what you know, right? So maybe they can share with you some services that would really help you that are affordable, and it might make more sense to have them do some of this for you than you do it on your own. But I just know for me, I like the fact that they did it all for me, and it came with that third-party auditor stamp of approval on it. So sellers or buyers would never question it because I would often say to them if they did have any issues, call IMS directly. They're a third-party auditor, and they don't just audit the real estate industry. They're in the pharmaceuticals. They're a very well-known and respected company. So, sometimes, in fact, I would lay down the number of homes I sold compared to the other agents, and sometimes sellers would be skeptical, right? They'd say, well, there's no way you could sell that many more homes than the next agent. And I would give them the IMS number, and I'd say, well, you can call IMS and verify it for yourself.
Perfect.
So it was useful.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Let's see who's next.
Our next guest is Walter Domoreski. Please go ahead.
And James, how are you?
Hi, it's Craig. How you doing, Walter?
Good, thank you. Craig, just a little info on when you have a very hot market, and for example, I'm selling you a home and I tell you, okay, yes, I can negotiate a better price for you, probably 5% or $5,000 less than the listing price. But when you have a hot market, and in particular in our area, they've got the bidding process, and everything's going way above the listing price.
Well, then you're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
Right. That's the point I want to make here with statistics is you're only going to use the stats that serve you. Think of statistics as things that will serve you. Right. You wouldn't talk about your days on the market unless they were superior. You wouldn't talk about to buyers about your strength of negotiating unless it was superior to the board average.
Okay.
And maybe, if homes are selling for 103% of the asking price and your buyers are only paying 100% of the asking price, even though they're paying 100% of the asking price, it's still better than paying 103.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, but if that particular statistic doesn't serve your purposes, you move on and you try to find another statistic that will. But even what will help all of you is just using those statistics that describe in detail what's going on in the marketplace. This is information that your competitors are not bringing. So when you work with a buyer or seller and you can bring these graphs and these charts that I demonstrated here today, in addition to the MLS printouts that all of us seem to bring, this extra information is going to really position you as the expert. And that's who people want to deal with, right?
Okay.
All right, I hope that helps. Let's see who's next.
Yeah.
We have Mike Watts. Please go ahead.
Hey, Craig, how you doing? Great presentation. Question, were all your charts made by IMS?
Well, the charts you're looking at today were made by Adrian, who is in our IT department, but they were very similar to this. He prettied them up and made them a little nicer today, but you get the idea. That's pretty much what they looked like in my presentation. I used them in my PowerPoint presentation for buyers and sellers. Some of it was printed out, like the tables, the graphs on the actual market conditions on list to sales ratio and things like that. Those I always had printed out. Okay.
Okay.
A lot of the bar graphs, though, were actual slides. Yeah, that's it right there. So something like this, Mike.
Yeah.
I just print that out with a color copier. So just go through a bunch of those, Adrian.
And how did you like create that market trends one that you just had on there? And how did Adrian do those? So I just have an idea of if I wanted to try to make them on my own, I could do that.
Okay, those are from IMS. So
that one there's from IMS?
Correct.
Okay.
That one's from IMS. Okay, but go to some of the bar graphs. Okay, that one I made myself. Okay,
that one.
This one Adrian made this yesterday.
How'd you make that, Adrian?
Just right within PowerPoint, there's a charts function that it's basically an Excel spreadsheet. You pop in the data and then you make a chart out of it. And it's quite simple. We can have a little discussion later on if you'd like.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, it really, I like using the charts because a picture tells 1,000 words. If you use these bar graphs, you can also kind of exaggerate the statistics. Go to the list to sales ratio stat for a second, Adrian. I'll show everyone what I mean by you kind of push the limits and exaggerate your stats. Can you find the list to sales ratio?
That one?
Yeah, right there. Now would everyone agree that that's not really to scale? Look at the difference between the 96.5 and the 94.8. It looks like it's double, right? Well, there's no reason that the green bar graph should be twice as long as the red because we're talking, a couple percent. But that's why I like to use visuals because you can really kind of exaggerate your superiority. But these are pretty easy to create for all of you. So there's no reason that you can't start off just homemade, going to your own MLS, using it. But if you're really serious about learning a lot about statistics and having that third-party stamp of approval, I would contact IMS, have them do a demo for you, and doesn't hurt, doesn't cost anything to check it out. I think I spent probably a couple grand a year with those guys, but made hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the information that they provided me. So would I do that again? Absolutely.
Thank you, Craig.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Let's see if there's anybody else.
We have a Richard Dinninger. Please go ahead.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, Richard.
I just wanted to ask, so you do a listing presentation with a seller. You give them all the stats. You take their listing. And let's say 45, 60 days later, they're disappointed because you didn't deliver on the stats that you said you were going to deliver on.
Well, that is the negative. That's why you want to make sure that you're using these statistics to get it priced properly. Anytime that usually happens, it's because they didn't take my advice on price. And I would throw that back to them that, yeah, those stats apply when you take my advice on price. You didn't. And, here we are months and months later without the result that we want. Now, the problem would lie if they did take your advice and it didn't sell. But again, these are averages, right?
Yeah, but the tricky part is you don't want to create animosity with a client. It's a very fine line to walk.
Well, of course not. You know that if you get the price right, that you're going to perform most of the time. And I'd rather use these statistics to get the business in the first place. And for the odd seller that is disappointed when we don't get their home sold in my average days in the market, for example, at least I have a chance to deal with that. Where if I don't use these statistics and perhaps don't get the business, then I've got no client to be disappointed in the first place. In other words, I'd rather handle that later, but use the stats to help me get as many customers as possible in the door, knowing that my averages are going to stand up most of the time. But you're right. You're going to have the odd person that, if my average days on the market are 33 days, and Richard, I've got your house on the market for 50 days, you may remember that. You may say, well, what happened to the 33 days in the market? I'm going to have to deal with that.
Did you have any kind of magic words that you could use to kind of appease sellers a little bit?
Well, I would remind them that these are average, right? If my average is 33 days in the market, I might have your home on the market for 57 days, but I might have sold someone else's home in 5 days. So the average days in the market were 33. I'm not promising that every home is going to sell in 33 days. It is what it is. It's an average.
But a lot of the times they start saying, well, we want more advertising. We want you to start doing open houses more. We want more signs. You know, they want more effort on your part to get it sold.
Well, that's the advantage to selling them quickly. The longer it goes on, the more demands they make. And a lead generation also helps a lot with this, because if you've got lots of sellers, you can sort of sift out the people that are going to be unrealistic or make unrealistic demands of you. And you're always going to have that seller, if you're doing enough business, that you may have to fire.
I mean, you don't want to do that because
you don't want to. But what if I didn't take your advice on price, and you're doing all kinds of stuff for me, but you know the kind of seller I'm talking about. It's never enough. They want you to, they're not addressing the real problem, which is the price. They're demanding that you sit in open houses, which you know are not helping. They're demanding big, expensive ads in the paper, which you know are not helping. At what point do these demands, really remove any profit? So, and the time that you put in with to these very difficult sellers, when you're spending time with somebody that's really difficult, it's taking you away from perhaps spending time with doing better things. So that's why having the statistics is going to, all those stats that I showed you earlier should give you some leverage with the seller to help you get the price right. And that's a big part of it. All of those graphs that we showed you about market conditions are going to help you, in addition to the comparables that you bring, hopefully position you as an expert, so they're more likely going to listen to you. Wouldn't it be great, Richard, if the sellers would actually just take our advice? But some of them aren't. And that's why I said, you remember earlier in the webinar, I said, when you show them all these statistics, to a realistic, reasonable seller, this should do the trick. But the problem is not every seller that you and I meet with is realistic and reasonable. So you could show them a seller, potentially a chart that shows days in the market are going way, way up. And the number of sales at the same time are going way, way down. And the list of sales ratio is going way, way down. So those three things, if you take a look at those three statistics as a whole, certainly shows us, indicates that the market's going down, but you're always going to have, the odd seller that's going to say, well, I'm not going to pay attention to any of that. Even though you proved to me that the prices are going down, I want to ask more money than the last guy. Those are the sellers that hopefully will get everyone here in this program into the position where you've got that power of choice, where maybe some of these sellers and buyers, for that matter, are not going to be a good fit. And that's really that was really a great point when I got to that point in my career, to be able to fire these difficult, unrealistic sellers, because these are the clients that I found made me dislike real estate. You know what I'm saying, Richard? When you work with a really good buyer or seller, you go home that day, you're having a, real estate's great. You walk in the door, you're in a great mood. But the opposite's also true, right? If you're working with a seller that disrespects you and they're unrealistic, they're difficult, they're fighting you all the way through the transaction, it can affect your mood. You go home and the dog knows something's wrong. So we need to do whatever we can to generate as much business as possible, use statistics like this in our presentation to make a really compelling case, and then take on as much business as we can and release the people that are just not reasonable and are not going to respect us and take our advice, but in turn are going to fight us all the way to the finish line. That's no way to run your real estate business. If you want to do it for a long, long time, like I've been doing this for 22 years, you get to a point where, you just want to attract the best and repel really the difficult prospects, and it makes your real estate career, a lot more fun for sure.
No, that makes a huge amount of sense. Did you ever discuss seasonality? Like, we know kind of spring and fall.
Yeah, I showed you a graph on that. Adrian, can we go back to the seasonality graph?
Yep.
Do you remember the one I showed you here, Richard, and went back about 4 or 5 years? Because that is a question that we commonly get asked, when's a good time to do it? Or in the spring, of course, here it is up here now, Richard. You can see in the spring market for most of us, it's certainly true in my marketplace, sales were huge, but then you get into the summer and look what happens. And then at the end of the year in December, sales really drop off. So let's say, Richard, you called me in the summer. Well, if I show you this graph, you can't expect me to get you the same results had you listed your house in February, March, or April. It's just not going to happen, right? Or if you list your house in December, look at the sales in December. However, if I was trying to get your listing, let's say I was meeting with you in January, and you said to me, well, Craig, I don't know whether I'm going to list now or I might wait until the summer, I would use this information to compel you to list it right now. I'd say, well, Richard, if you list it right now in January, we're coming into what is usually the best time of the year. If you wait until the summer, you're going to miss that entire spring market. So absolutely, I would use seasonality, this graph here, in all those different ways.
Okay, well, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, well, thanks, Richard. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in here today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed being here. If you've got any questions, of course, you can contact us or contact us through your coach. Our office number toll-free is 1-800-538-1034. And Adrian, thanks for doing a great job today.
No problem.
Take care, and that concludes today's webinar.